I'm Elizabeth. Welcome to Local Matters. Let's get started. Art and inebriation have a long history together, both as subject matter and as inspiration. So it makes sense that the cleverly named Inebri-Art, begun in 2011, was conceived of on a bar stool in Plymouth. What is Inebri-Art? Julie invited co-founder Andy Driscoll on to tell us.
Welcome, Andy Driscoll. So happy to have you here. Can you tell us how Inebri-Art was born?
Sure. It actually was like a lot of ideas born on a bar stool. A friend of mine was a bartender at Fridays here in Plymouth, and he was also an artist. And at the time, drink and draws were really popular, and he said we should start a drink and draw. And I said, when? He's like, I work Thursdays. And then for about 2 or 3 years, every Thursday, we met with a bunch of artists and just drew.
So you literally mean you had cocktails and you drew. You
Yes,
artistically you
that's
drew.
all
That's
it
the drink and
was a
draw.
yeah, it was just a kind of a club for visual artists to get together and hang out and draw in a fun atmosphere.
Oh, that's cool. Okay. What were your goals when you started Inebri-Art, and how have they changed?
Well, like I said, we just were there to have fun, so I can't even say we had goals. At the time, it didn't even have a name. It wasn't even known as Inebri-Art. It was just a drink and draw, and over the course of time, it picked up the name Inebri-Art, and I wanted to leave my day job. I worked in a big box retail, and I wanted to leave that environment, and so I kind of started to fashion an Inebriate into a business, and it kind of struggled at that point. And then when I stopped trying to do that, it kind of took on a life of its own, and we kind of more focused on just helping artists of all types, performing and visual, get exposure, and that's really when Inebriate just took off.
Which is terrific. And so there are a lot of vibrant artists, both visual artists, musical artists, all kinds of
Mhm.
artists here in Plymouth. Can you give me some examples of ones that you've worked with?
Oh, sure. Geez, Chris Mindle jumps to mind. I work with him a lot. Alex Lever is amazing, amazing artist here in Plymouth, and I do a lot of work with her. Kat from Inky Hand Studios is another great artist. There's just so many in this area of all types, and we've gotten more into music and stand up comedy, and there's just so many talented people, in this area.
Yeah, the art world itself is expanded hugely. And I think a lot during COVID, it's actually expanded even more. And people have become more creative in how they've shared their artwork. You are an artist yourself. You were heavily
Yes.
involved in the very popular Lobster Crawl, which was an art
Hmm.
display that was it was sponsored by the Plymouth area Chamber of Commerce, and subsequent the scallop roll, which
Correct.
you designed our scallop for PAC TV. So, can you talk to me about how it felt to participate in a community outreach artistic endeavor like that?
It was really interesting, and it still is, and that's kind of what I really like about it is they stay up for years at a time, and I live right downtown, so I'm constantly walking by my own artwork, and to see, tourists and even locals stop and take photos and admire them, and you're always stumbling across new ones. I was walking with a friend of mine last night, and we came across one by Kyle Powers, and she's like, I haven't even seen this one yet. So it's just a very cool experience to see it, almost on a daily basis, and see people enjoy it on a daily basis for years at a time.
Yeah, and it's so unique. It's indescribable for people who have never been able to walk and use the map to show where all the scallops are
Hmm.
or where all the lobsters were at the time. Hugely successful art installation, I think, for Plymouth. And recently, you did have the Shop Local Marketplace at Mayflower Brewing, and you've actually kept really at the forefront of doing events during COVID. Can you talk to me about that?
Sure. COVID obviously has been a struggle for everyone, and we kind of stepped back from some of the events that we normally do because it just wasn't safe. And so we tried to still stay relevant. And so we did a lot of online streaming events. We did um, a stand-up comedy show that streams every couple weeks. We are doing a music show from the craft beer cellar called the Cellar Sessions to help musicians who aren't able to play out. And we give them a platform to play and hopefully get some tips via Venmo. And then we just had that shop local market, which was the first event we've run in quite some time. And it's all about helping local people make products locally, or locally sourced products, get exposure and get their product out there. And it was a phenomenal turnout. We were COVID safe. We maintained the a certain number of people that you're allowed at the events, and kept track of who was there. We had our vendor space 6 feet apart. And I think we had 6 vendors sell out completely. And it was an amazing event. It was a gorgeous day, and you get to hang out at the Mayflower Brewery, which is never a bad thing.
Yeah, all the stars aligned that day for
Oh
sure.
yeah, for sure.
Do you have a podcast?
No, I have 3.
Okay.
Um,
Let's talk about those.
Yeah, I'm not a TV watcher, and I don't like to not be busy. So uh, we're coming up on a 5-year anniversary of the first one. It's called Inebri-Art, and it, we interview creative people about what they do and how they do it. Um, some of our past guests have been Uli John Roth of the Scorpions, Dee Snider of Twisted Sister, Nick Tauchman, who was on Deadliest Catch, Amber Nash, who was on the animated show Archer. So we've had some really big name guests from all over the world. I just interviewed a band from Denmark and a musician out of New Zealand, and it's not scripted. I don't have any idea of the questions going in, and it's just a casual conversation where we kind of dive into the mind of creative people and see what they're like, and why they do what they do. And then we have Bar Talk, which is hosted by Jordan Chabot of Speedwell, Carl Heine of the New World Tavern, and local all around bar manager Dan Mahoney, who is working at Stats in Boston now, and myself. And it's a sneak peek behind the curtain of what it's like working in the restaurant industry. We kind of call it the service industry support group. We have listeners writing questions, and we typically try to answer them. Whether we actually help in any way, shape, or form is up for debate. But it's a really fun, um, real look at what it's like working in the restaurant industry and the people who do it. Because we have guests from all over Plymouth and all over the area. And then last but not least, we have the Old Colony cast, which at the beginning of 2020 we revamped, and it was initially our meant to be our love letter to Plymouth and the surrounding area where we're from. And we brought in a new co-host at the beginning of 2020, Hannah Dowling, and it just it found what it was meant to be. And it's very heavily focused on the history of the area. And Hannah's kind of the researcher, and she kind of discusses the topic with myself and our producer Fish. And it's been one of my favorite things to do in the past year, is record that, because it's so much fun, and I learn stuff from it all the time because Hannah's phenomenal at what she does. and
Wow.
and we talk local topics. We just did Dr. Seuss. We've done Burial Hill, Plymouth Rock, the Plymouth mail truck robbery, all sorts of things. Some very well known, other things not so much, and that's kind of the fun part of it.
Wow. So you tie in history, you tie in what's going on right now, you tie in the restaurant industry,
Mhm.
you tie in artists, and it's all about how we are really all connected anyway, which I think is just so wonderful. And
Oh,
lastly,
sure.
what is the future of Inebri-Art? Do you see this branching out even more?
Yeah. So we're really anxious for some of the COVID restrictions to loosen up, um, so we can get back to doing our mug paintings at breweries. That was hugely popular. we're looking to expand that to other states, to have what we intend to call art tenders, to host these uh, bar mug bar beer mug paintings, in other places that we're not already. We are starting to launch our YouTube channels with more video content, including a uh, new show that is a video version of Bar Talk. It's called Bar Talk Day Drinking, where the group from Bar Talk tried different cocktails. There's a vodka episode and a rum episode up, with more to come. I think we're filming tequila in next week. And continue to do the podcast. It really is something that we just don't know when to say no. And anytime someone comes up with a good idea that sounds like fun, we're in. And it's all about
That's
having a
wonderful.
good time. And we
Fabulous.
plan on bringing our stand-up comedy shows to
Great.
real life when we can. And so we got lots of plans.
Excellent, excellent. You're not going anywhere. Well, it's been wonderful, and it's just amazing how much you do and how much you have inspired. So thank you so much for joining us today.
To check out Inebri-Art, visit their website at inebri-art.com.